Do you want to know how your member of parliament voted on that bill before you make your choice as to whether or not you're going to vote for that member of parliament in the upcoming election?
These are the things that we believe in. First, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number three, that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. And number four, that it is inappropriate to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. They came from you. They're your pillars.
Hi, this is Doug Sharp, host of the National Leadership Briefing, and this is the Midweek Touchpoint. Well, as you know, on the National Leadership Briefing, we always say that we look through the lens of the four pillars, of each of the four pillars, at the things that we encounter in society, culture, politics, and government, and we evaluate them based on that. For example, when we have legislative proposals in the House of Commons, we evaluate whether they are worthy of supporting or working against, actually, if they in any way don't align themselves with the principles of the four pillars. Let me give you an example of a specific piece of legislation. We recently had a bill C7, that was intentionally removing safeguards that were in place under the current euthanasia regime. And we were concerned that vulnerable citizens that live among us in our communities were being placed at increased risk. So we opposed Bill C7, and it was an expansion of euthanasia and a removal of safeguards that were intended to protect vulnerable citizens from dying a euthanasia death prematurely. We obviously opposed it for those reasons. So it's really important that as we look at the road ahead and we see ourselves coming up on an election, that we take full advantage of the way that our members of parliament voted on these pieces of legislation, these legislative proposals that went before them in the House of Commons, so that we can understand as well as we can about where their head and their heart is at when it comes to things like vulnerable citizens and the importance that we place on protecting vulnerable people. We want to make sure that our members of parliament also share this same concern for them. We also look, like, as an example, the first pillar. We want to know that as pieces of legislation are placed before our members of parliament to vote on, that they respect the authority of parents to raise their children the way they want. And nothing tells the story better than how they vote up or down on specific pieces of legislation. So this is why it's so important, the work that we're doing with E-Day Choice, the new website, and the fact that we're going to have these votes at our fingertips so that we can evaluate the performance of our existing members of parliament. That is why E-Day Choice is so important for us to have up and available to us before we get to election day and make that all important choice. Now, there isn't anything on E-Day Choice. I got to tell you right now, there isn't anything on the website there when it comes to these votes and how they voted that isn't available on the internet somewhere. It's just a little bit harder to find. So we just wanted to make it very easy. So at the end of your fingertips, you can say, okay, how did my member of parliament vote on, for example, let's take a look at one in particular. I just want to show you how serious it is with these votes, that we understand these votes. There was a bill called Bill C-225, and Bill C-225 was also referred to as Cassie and Molly's Law. Now, Cassie stood for Cassandra, and Cassandra, or Cassie, as the bill was named for, she was 7 months pregnant when she was found dead at the scene of an arson in Windsor, Ontario in 2014. Now there's some tough information here. There's tough things here to review, but this is just, again, I'm not trying to be to shock anybody, but I want you to know the seriousness of understanding the minds and hearts of our members of parliament as they vote in the House of Commons. So within a very short period of time of Cassie's death, because it's clear that they found out that Cassandra would have been giving birth to her baby that she had inside of her at the time of her death, and she had planned to call the baby Molly. So that's why it was called Cassie and Molly's Law, or referred to that. So on the day that Cassandra was murdered, she had gone out and was planning her baby shower. This is information that came out in the court case. When she returned home, a struggle ensued and Cassandra was strangled until she was unconscious. Now, it was reported that her throat had been slit, her fingertips were cut off, and her body was doused in gasoline before the entire house was set on fire. Now, the Cassie and Molly's Law bill, the legislative proposal that was before our members of parliament to vote on, called for an amendment that would make it a separate offense to cause injury or death to a preborn child during the commission of an offense against the child's mother. Now, that makes a lot of sense to me just at first glance. I mean, I looked in a little bit deeper. It really was as simple as that. Now, at the very first reading of the bill, this bill, when it was introduced to the House of Commons, okay, which is remember that we do the training on the legislative process. It comes into the House of Commons. The bill gets read and accepted at first reading, and then it moves to second reading when it then gets studied a little bit more in depth at committee stage, they call it. And then it goes to third reading when the parliamentarians can have a final look at it, a little bit more debate and discussion on the bill, and then they vote on it if they want to advance it into the Senate for the sober second thought. That's the process. But this bill just entered the House of Commons, was about to begin the process, and it was at that point that a majority of the members of Parliament in the House of Commons voted down the bill that would have made it a separate offense to cause injury or death to a preborn child during the commission of an offense. So now this is, you ask yourself, okay, why are we so interested in this? Well, because if the third pillar is that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us, not only was the safety and security of Cassandra or Cassie important to us, and that there were laws in place to provide the necessary protections for her, but also her unborn baby, Molly, was also very vulnerable, and those vulnerable persons need protection under the law. So our parliamentarians had an opportunity to have a conversation through the legislative process about Cassie and Molly's Law, yet a majority of members of parliament voted that down. So I want to ask you a question. Do you want to know how your member of parliament voted on that bill before you make your choice as to whether or not you're going to vote for that member of parliament in the upcoming election? Well, that is exactly what edaychoice.ca is all about. Is we just want to make sure that you have available at your fingertips an easy to use, manageable system for identifying how your members of parliament voted on that particular bill and others that are of importance to you. So that is why eDay Choice is up. That is why we're excited about launching it. And that is why we're so happy that you're paying attention to these things, because we ultimately want you to make an informed choice as to who you're going to support on election day. And we thank you so much for taking the time to bring yourself to that place of being informed, and perhaps you could be an informer as well and help others by sharing the website with them as well. Anyway, I hope that's helpful today. Thank you so much for your time and the time that you're going to take reviewing the eDay Choice website and giving us the opportunity to serve you on the election trail. In the meantime, and until next time, God bless you, God bless your family, and may God continue to bless this great nation of Canada. Bye for now.